Hey, this is Mark from boatsandbikes.com, and today we're looking at the world of surf skis. Now, this video is going to be less of our typical head-to-head showdown or paddling review, and a little bit more of a discussion about surf skis and kayaks and each of their respective places in this universe for anyone who's thought of making the jump from kayak to ski. And so for exercise, races, downwind paddles, surf skis are really pretty tempting. And while there's a lot of configurations of skis today, what we're going to do is really compare what I'll call a prototypical performance touring kayak and a prototypical performance ski. So what we're looking at today is the Epic V12. This one's a club layup. That means it's fiberglass and carbon mix. And of course, club is their heaviest and most economical setup. In other words, this is the heaviest boat of this line. Representing Sea Kayak World, today we're using a plastic Necky Chatham 17, ubiquitous performance drop skeg boat, also out of production like this current V12. But maybe a glass boat would have been a better comparison, but that's what we had, and of course it all works. So let's start with the basics, tail of the tape. Necky 17 by 21, about 62 pounds, 17 feet long, 21 inches wide, 62 pounds. Our Epic V12 club, it's 21 feet long, 17 inches wide, about 37 pounds. Now, surf skis are very narrow. It's a much more rounded hull compared to a sea kayak. The kayak is going to use a flatter hull, and obviously the rounded hull is going to be much tippier than the flat hull. But consider also this, where the Necky is that 21 inches across, pretty narrow for a kayak. The V12 is barely 16 or 17. And so now we have this narrow round hull. It's like balancing on a log. So bottom line is the Surfski is tippy. And so if one thing comes out of this video, if it comes through clearly, if you have been paddling a 22 or a 24 inch wide kayak, and now you're going to jump into a 17 inch round hull, you are definitely in for an adjustment. Now, I know that you've seen videos of paddlers surfing ocean waves for miles on these skis, but I'm telling you, it requires more practice than you think it will. It looks easy, and it's not as easy as it looks. So the V12 is 21 feet long, where the Necky is 17, but notice how little rocker this ski has. And remember, rocker is that banana shape from bow to stern, and it tends to add stability in rough conditions and allow the boat to turn quickly. So the Necky has a fair bit of rocker, but it gets its straight line directional stability from a keel molded into the hull. And then there's also the addition of the drop skeg for a little turn on, turn off kind of directional stability. The V12 has no molded keel. It relies on the rudder. It doesn't have a lot of rocker. It uses that knife bow to plow through stuff. When you're surfing it, you can even bury that bow under the water. It's a design that came from America's Cup sailing. So a different way to get the stability such as it has on the ski. But what it gives you is a lot of speed. Now, as we continue to look at the hull, the ski has an open bucket that's molded right into the top of the hull for a sit-on-top ride, where our sea kayak needs a sit-inside type of seat. And so the sit-on-top configuration is frankly easier to get in. And for some people, it adds some security. Some people are a little uncomfortable with the idea of being inside of a boat if it were to tip over. Now, of course, if you have a bomb-proof roll and a skirt arm, you're fine, but most people don't have a bomb-proof roll, and the sit-on-top configuration is really easier to mount and potentially safer than a sit-inside. So what about paddling? The Necky's actually a pretty fast boat for what it is, and it can be steered easily with edging and with paddle control, but the V12 is just faster. The glide on the V12 is just a world ahead. However, the V12 takes practice, and while I love it for an afternoon sprint or a river race or a downwind play day, it isn't really a boat that I relax in. It requires my attention. So the Necky is comforting. It's simple. It's easy. And of course, the Sea Kayak has a ton of storage inside the hull, dry storage, enough for a couple of days out. The V12 gives me a little bungee strap on the top deck. I ain't going nowhere with that. So, finally, surf skis are a little bit fragile. They have an eggshell type of hull, but not so with the Necky. This Necky is absolutely beatable. So what's the answer? Well, surf skis are great for going fast, for racing and downwind surfing. A day out running exercise loops, perfect. They aren't great for touring. They aren't great for beating up. They aren't great for relaxing and day paddles. And, also a performance ski has a pretty steep learning curve. And again, don't kid yourself into thinking that you're going to jump into a boat like the V12 and start ocean surfing. Unless you're an exceptional athlete, it's going to require practice and learning. So if you don't need to eke out the most speed from your paddle, or if you want to take a kind of a more enjoyable route or go out for long trips, stick with your sea kayak. Still, the performance ski is going to reward you with efficiency and excitement that's really hard to duplicate in a kayak. Look, yes, you can paddle a kayak fast, and yes, you can surf some kayaks as well. But skis are just better at it. Now, keep in mind, there are new recreational skis, shorter, a little wider. There's plastic surf skis now. And there's also performance touring kayaks. So it doesn't have to be this clean either-or decision that we've laid out here today. But if you're thinking of jumping from your performance kayak to a performance ski, be prepared to be patient while you learn it. Say goodbye to your storage. You can sacrifice some of the relaxing paddling that you've done in the past with your kayak, but the payoff is going to come in speed, rough water excitement, and downwind performance. This is Mark from Boats and Bikes. Thanks for listening.